You know, we really like to think of ourselves as the captains of our own ships. Like, you wake up, you decide what clothes to put on, what coffee to order, what career to pursue.
Right, it feels entirely internally driven.
Exactly. It feels like free will.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you look at the menu, you weigh the options, and you make a choice that maximizes your personal preference. It's just you and your individual needs.
But then you zoom out, you look at the data, and suddenly you realize you are not the captain.
Not at all.
You're like a fish in a school of fish, turning at the exact same millisecond as 1,000 others, and you don't even know why. You're caught in this localized social magnetism.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. You aren't being pulled by some giant abstract societal force. You're being constantly pulled by the 3 or 4 people swimming closest to you.
We are swimming in an invisible architecture of social norms. And those norms dictate almost everything you do, often completely bypassing your conscious decision making.
They really do. It's happening all the time.
So, welcome to another deep dive. Today, our mission is to uncover that invisible architecture. We want to figure out exactly how these unspoken rules control you.
And we've got a fascinating stack of materials to go through today to do just that.
Yeah, we are spanning from the intense social pressure of 19th century Irish pubs all the way to modern heart surgery.
And even the math behind climate change activism, which is just incredible.
Right. We want to know why you follow the crowd, why you sometimes try to break away, and the exact mathematical threshold required to flip a societal norm on its head. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Where should we start?
Well, to understand how a social norm gets its hooks into you, I think we should probably start in a low-stakes environment. Something relatable.
Right, like a microcosm of human behavior.
Exactly. So, have you ever been trapped in the nightmare politics of splitting a group dinner bill?
Oh, yeah. The worst.
Right. Like, you ordered a side salad and a tap water, but the person across from you ordered a ribeye and, like, 3 expensive cocktails?
And then someone invariably says, hey, let's just split it evenly.
Yes. And suddenly you are just handing over your credit card. I mean, you know it's a terrible deal for you financially, but the friction of objecting, of looking like the cheapskate in front of your friends, it somehow outweighs the financial loss.
That is a perfect modern analog for what we see in one of our sources today.
Oh, really?
Yeah, what's fascinating here is a literary analysis by John S. Slack. He looked at the public houses of Catholic Ireland at the turn of the 20th century, specifically as depicted by James Joyce.
Right, in works like Dubliners and Ulysses.
Exactly. Joyce viewed himself as sort of a dilettante sociologist, and he captured this social law that was enforced with just terrifying rigidity. It was the ritual of treating.
Treating, I've heard that term. That's just buying rounds of drinks for the table, right? I mean, it sounds friendly enough.
It sounds generous on the surface, sure, but Joyce's work reviews it as this rigid, inescapable cycle.
Like a trap.
Completely. If a man bought you a drink, you were socially obligated to buy the next round, and then the next.
Oh,
And to refuse a drink from someone, that was considered a deadly insult.
a deadly insult over a beer.
Literally a slight against their honor and their financial standing. Unless you provided some elaborate, groveling apology, you could not say no.
So it's not generosity at all. It's a social hostage situation.
That's exactly what it is.
You are forced into a financial loop. But what if you just, I don't know, what if you just didn't play the game? What if you walked into the pub and said, hey guys, I'm just buying my own drink today?
Well, we actually see that happen in Ulysses. The character Leopold Bloom actively bucks the system in Barney Kiernan's pub.
And how does that go for him?
Terribly. He refuses to treat others, and he refuses to accept drinks, taking only a cigar.
Yeah.
And the rest of the pub reacts with intense suspicion and resentment.
Just for not buying a round.
Yeah, he completely alienates himself. Because the norm is so strong, participating in it becomes the only way to signal that you belong to the tribe.
Wow.
It was actually so oppressive that in 1902, there was a real-world organization formed called the St. Patrick's Anti-Treating League.
Wait, really? An official league?
Entirely dedicated to combating these involuntary drinking bouts.
The pressure must have been immense if they had to form an official league just to get people to stop buying each other Guinness. But, okay, if you're broke and you literally cannot afford to buy a round, what do? Just never go out?
No, you start engaging in highly deceptive behaviors just to manage the norm without breaking it.
Oh, like sneaking around.
Exactly. In Joyce's short story counterparts, there is a character named Farrington. He's broke, he's trapped, but he desperately wants a pint.
So what does he do?
He invents this elaborate subterfuge. He leaves his cap on the coat rack at work, so his boss assumes he's just in the lavatory.
Oh, that's clever.
Right. Meanwhile, Farrington sneaks out to the snug, which is like a private back room in the pub, to drink alone, completely unseen.
Just so he doesn't have to participate in the treating ritual, he has to sneak around like a spy just to have a beer without going bankrupt.
And it gets deeper than that. Later that night, Farrington feels so emasculated by his poverty and his inability to hold his own in the social hierarchy that he engages in this highly ritualized arm wrestling match with an Englishman.
Wait, arm wrestling?
Yeah, it's a trial of strength. It's
Yeah.
designed purely to mask his dysfunction and claw back some social capital.
Right, we see that kind of performative stuff all the time when people are trying to mask their insecurities. Actually, that reminds me of another Joyce example from the sources, The Funeral Wake.
Oh, yes, in Stephen Hero.
Right. So the teenager, Stephen Dedalus, goes to a pub after his sister's funeral, and he orders a plain, cheap porter.
A very basic drink.
Yeah. And his father, Simon, absolutely loses his mind. But not because his underage kid is drinking alcohol.
No, not at all.
He's furious because Stephen ordered the cheap beer instead of the expensive whiskey. I mean, Simon is practically broke, but his entire focus is on maintaining the illusion of being a respectable, wealthy landowner in front of the other men at the pub.
Exactly. Simon is trapped in a positive feedback loop.
Yeah.
The behavior is tied to his social standing. In that moment, conforming to the expectation of wealth is vastly more valuable to him than his actual literal wealth.
Okay, I can understand bending to the localized magnetism of the pub. I mean, it's a low-stakes environment, relatively speaking. You might lose some money, you might get a hangover.
Right.
But does this desire to fit in actually hold up when the stakes are higher? Like, does this irrational conformity still dictate our behavior when our livelihood or our physical safety is on the line?
That is the big question.
Right.
And to answer that, we have to pivot to this really heavy-hitting economic paper by Mary A. Burke and H. Peyton Young.
Okay.
They introduced this concept called conformity warp.
Conformity war.
Yes. It's the phenomenon where a social norm exerts so much pressure that it causes individuals to make choices that are completely warped away from their own personal types or their best interests.
Really? Like where?
We see it clearly in agriculture, of all places.
Farming. How does peer pressure affect farming?
Well, Burke and Young analyzed crop-sharing contracts between landlords and tenant farmers in Illinois.
Okay.
According to standard economic theory, if you are splitting the profits of a farm, the contract should be entirely dictated by the quality of the soil.
Makes sense. Better soil yields more crops with less effort.
Exactly. So the landlord with better soil has the leverage to negotiate a higher share for themselves. And soil quality varies wildly from farm to farm, even within the exact same county.
So you would expect to look at the data and see like 1,000 different highly customized contracts based on whatever dirt they are standing on.
That's what logic dictates.
Hmm.
But the data shows something completely different. There is massive regional uniformity.
Wait, really?
Yeah. In northern Illinois, the overwhelming majority of farms use a strict 50-50 split. But in southern Illinois, they overwhelmingly use a 1/3, 2/3 split, or sometimes a 2/5, 3/5 split.
Wait, hold on. So if you have two farms in northern Illinois, and one has incredibly lush, fertile soil, and the other is just a rocky mess, they both just use the exact same 50-50 contract.
That's what the data shows.
But why wouldn't the landlord with the good soil demand a 60-40 split? That's just leaving money on the table.
Because of the psychological friction of perceived unfairness.
Ah.
If that landlord demands a customized contract that breaks the local norm, the tenant feels slighted. Even if the math is technically fair based on the soil quality, the tenant feels like they are being treated worse than every other farmer in the county.
And that leads to problems.
Huge problems. That resentment leads to retaliation. The tenant might secretly put in less effort, or they might fail to maintain the equipment properly.
Oh, I see. So the social friction, the bad blood, actually ends up costing the landlord more money than they would have gained by optimizing the contract in the first place.
Precisely. They just conform to whatever the local neighbors are doing because it's safer.
That's wild.
It is local conformity, but global diversity. The North conforms to one standard, the South conforms to another, completely ignoring the objective reality of the soil beneath their feet.
Okay, I can see how that happens in business. I mean, you have to work with these people every day. But the paper takes this concept into the medical field, and honestly, I have to push back hard on this one.
Go for it.
It talks about small area variations in medicine. Are we really saying that a highly trained heart surgeon, someone who went to medical school for a decade, is just copying the doctor down the hall like it's a fashion trend?
Ah.
Because that is genuinely terrifying.
I know, it sounds alarming, but we need to look at the underlying mechanism here. It is not peer pressure in the high school sense.
Okay, then what is it?
It is a response to uncertainty. Medicine is rarely a perfect binary.
True. Every human body is different.
Exactly. Think about a doctor treating a heart attack patient. Clinical trials might show that beta blockers reduce mortality by 25%. But those trials are conducted in highly controlled, sterile environments.
Hmm.
But the patient, sitting in front of the doctor, is messy. They have other health conditions, different genetics, varied ages. When doctors face this localized ambiguity, they look to the recent choices of their local peers as a signal.
Oh, so it's like an informal A/B test.
Exactly that. If Dr. Smith sees Dr. Jones having success with a specific surgical intervention, Dr. Smith starts using it as a baseline. Then Dr. Brown observes both of them and adopts it as well.
And it spreads.
Right. Before long, that specific treatment becomes the default norm for that specific hospital, regardless of national guidelines. The data shows that despite clinical proof, beta blocker usage varied from just 44% in Mississippi to 80% in Maine.
That is wild. The treatment you get isn't just about your heart, it's about your zip code.
And this is where the conformity warp creates actual casualties.
How so?
The researchers looked at heart patient data in Florida. Tallahassee has a relatively younger cardiac demographic compared to Fort Lauderdale, which has an older demographic. Because the doctors in Tallahassee optimize their default treatments based on their local patient history, aggressive, invasive surgery became the established norm there. It works well for their average younger patient.
But what if you aren't the average patient? What if you are a 75-year-old who just happens to live in Tallahassee?
Then you are subjected to the conformity warp. You are significantly more likely to be given an invasive surgery which carries much higher risks at age 75 than if you live down the road in Fort Lauderdale.
Oh my God.
The local patient mix warps the doctor's subjective choice. The minority-type patient suffers a severe welfare loss because the system is blindly conforming to the majority.
That is heavy. So the localized magnetism is so strong it can literally dictate your medical outcome.
It really can.
But this brings up a massive paradox for me. If this invisible architecture is really that powerful, if it dictates how we split our farming profits, how surgeons operate on our hearts, and whether we get trapped buying 10 rounds of Guinness, why isn't society just one monolithic static block?
That's a great question.
Like, why do things ever change? Why do we have trends?
To understand the engine of change, we have to look at the game theoretic analysis in our sources. It's appropriately titled Hipsters and the Cool.
Love that title.
Because as strong as the gravity of conformity is, there is an equally powerful opposing psychological force.
Which is?
The human need for uniqueness.
We want to belong, but we refuse to be invisible.
We want to be identifiable, but not identical. And the tension between those two needs is what drives every cultural fad.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Let's talk about the baby name data.
Yes, the baby names. The researchers looked at American baby names from 1880 to 2020. They used a machine learning algorithm called fast text.
Okay, explain that a bit.
Think of it like mapping out a giant three-dimensional galaxy of words. The algorithm plotted thousands of names into a vector space.
So it's organizing them by how similar they sound or how they're culturally related.
Right. It groups them by linguistic and cultural proximity. And what this massive map reveals is a constant restless search for the sweet spot.
Which means what for parents?
Parents consistently choose names that are moving toward the population mean. They want a name that sounds familiar, normal, and safe. That is the conformity drive.
But the moment a name gets too popular, it dies. Like, the sources specifically call out the name Winona.
Yep, Winona.
It was climbing the charts, gaining all this traction in the early 20th century. But as soon as it became a little too common, it completely lost its unique cultural cachet.
Exactly.
Parents abandoned it immediately. It wasn't special anymore, so they started searching the linguistic galaxy for the next slightly unique thing.
And our hunger for that uniqueness is actually accelerating. The math on this is stark.
How stark?
Well, in the year 1900, the single most popular baby name in America was given to nearly 4% of all babies born.
Okay.
But by the year 2000, the most popular name was given to less than 1% of babies. The target is shrinking.
That's crazy. How does the network effect play into this? Because the paper mentions two different mathematical theorems.
Right. Theorem 1 models a hypothetical society as a well-mixed pool. Imagine a world where every single person can perfectly observe every other person in society at all times.
Like a hive mind.
Exactly.
Hmm.
In that scenario, the math dictates that society would reach a static equilibrium. We would eventually find the exact mathematical balance between blending in and standing out, and culture would just freeze.
So nothing would ever change again.
Nothing. But we don't live in a giant perfect pool, we live in social networks.
Which leads to theorem 2. We only observe our local neighborhoods, our friends, our coworkers, our family.
Right. And because of this limited view, we create what is known as a stochastic limit cycle.
Okay, we definitely need to unpack that term. What does a stochastic limit cycle actually look like in real life?
Imagine a massive game of musical chairs in a dark room. No one can see all the chairs. They can only see the 2 or 3 chairs closest to them.
Okay.
Person 1 feels too similar to person 2, so they move to an empty chair to be unique. But by sitting there, they accidentally bump into person 3, ruining person 3's uniqueness.
Oh, I see.
So person 3 has to get up and move, which disrupts person 4.
It's an endless game of whack-a-mole. The social dynamics literally cannot converge because someone is always dissatisfied, endlessly disrupting the local equilibrium.
That is exactly it.
I call this the hipster paradox. You want to be unique, so you buy a vintage beanie and start drinking oat milk lattes.
Actually.
But your friends see you and think, hey, that looks cool, I want to fit in, so they copy you. Suddenly, everyone in the coffee shop looks exactly the same. You've accidentally created a uniform.
You became the norm.
Right. So the true hipster is forced to invent a brand new, weirder trend just to differentiate themselves again, and the cycle reboots.
I love that analogy. If we connect this to the bigger picture, that cycle applies to far more than clothes or coffee. It fundamentally alters our perception of physical reality.
Really? How?
Let's look back at the Burke and Young paper. They tracked shifting body weight norms in the United States. Between 1976 and 2002, the relative price of food dropped significantly and average body weights rose across the population.
So the physical reality changed. Did the psychological benchmark move with it?
It did. The National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey data shows that in the late 1980s, about 40% of normal weight women self-classified as overweight.
They felt they were larger than the ideal.
Yes. But by the early 2000s, as the societal average weight increased around them, that number dropped to 35%.
Wow.
The physical bodies hadn't changed categories, but the social norm acted as a relative moving target. We constantly recalibrate what is normal based on the shifting visual evidence of our local network.
Okay, so we are caught in this endless tug of war. The localized magnetism locks us in place, like Farrington terrified to leave the pub, while our hipster desire for uniqueness creates these slow, rolling cultural fads.
Exactly.
But what if you look at the world, say, the climate crisis, or wildly toxic corporate culture, and you realize you cannot wait for a slow fad? What if you need to actively, intentionally shatter a societal norm right now? How do you force a paradigm shift?
For a very long time, sociologists thought it was virtually impossible to predict. Or they assumed you needed a massive, overwhelming majority to force real change.
But we know that's not true now.
Right. The research by Damon Santola on social tipping points finally gives us the mathematical blueprint for a revolution.
So Santola draws this really crucial distinction between a simple contagion and a complex contagion. A simple contagion is like a viral meme or a catchy song, right? It spreads effortlessly through weak ties. You see a stranger post a funny video, you hit share, and it spreads across the globe in a day.
But changing a deeply entrenched social norm is a complex contagion. Getting a community to adopt radical climate change action or transitioning an entire industry's ethical standards that doesn't happen with a simple share button.
Right. I mean, I'm not going to sell my car and change my entire lifestyle just because a random stranger on the internet told me to.
Exactly. Complex contagions require multiple sources of social reinforcement. You need to see your neighbor doing it, and your sister, and your respected coworker.
It has to surround you.
Yes, it requires wide, robust bridges across social networks to take hold. And Santola's experimental data revealed the magic number required to flip a complex contagion.
And what is it?
It is the roughly 25% tipping point.
The 25% tipping point. This blew my mind. Walk me through how this works. Let's say a committed minority is pushing for a radical change in their community, and they manage to convince 20% or 23% or even 24% of the population. What happens?
Their efforts fail completely.
Completely.
Yes, the gravitational pull of the 75% majority is simply too entrenched. The established norm crushes the rebellion, and the behavior snaps back to the status quo.
But the absolute second they cross that 25% threshold.
There is an abrupt, rapid, nonlinear change in the group dynamics. The dominant norm shatters. The majority of the population rapidly, almost involuntarily, adopts the new norm championed by the minority. It behaves like water turning to ice. It doesn't freeze gradually, the temperature drops, and suddenly it snaps into an entirely new physical state.
Now, the sources do note this isn't a hard physical constant like the speed of light, right? It can fluctuate a bit.
Correct. The threshold is adjustable based on a variable called memory length.
Memory lane.
Yes. It's essentially how deeply entrenched or historical a belief is within a population. A deeply stubborn generational norm might require a 28% tipping point. A lighter, more recent norm might only require 21%.
Okay, that makes sense.
But regardless of the exact number, the tipping point phenomenon remains abrupt and explosive.
So what does this all mean? If you are listening to this and you want to organize a union or you want to start a local climate initiative, should you stop exhausting yourself trying to convince the 75% of people who are actively resisting you? Should you just focus purely on radicalizing a 25% minority?
This raises an important question, and yes, that is the actionable takeaway. Energy spent fighting the stubborn, entrenched majority is largely wasted.
Interesting.
Your singular goal as an organizer or a leader should be to build a committed, highly visible, deeply interconnected minority cluster.
Because once you hit that critical mass, the localized social magnetism flips. The exact same invisible force that kept the Irishman trapped buying drinks, the exact same force that locked the Illinois farmers into bad contracts, suddenly starts working for you.
Exactly.
It will sweep the reluctant majority along with the new norm, doing all the heavy lifting for you.
Conformity itself is a neutral mechanism. It can anchor a society to the past, or it can accelerate a society into the future, provided someone can assemble that 25% fulcrum.
That is incredible. So to bring all of this together, whether you are ordering a pint in Dublin, choosing a medical procedure in Florida, trying to find a unique name for your baby, or fighting to save the climate, you are never acting entirely alone. You are a node in a vast, invisible network, constantly pushed by the need to conform and pulled by the desire to be unique.
It's a constant push and pull. But before we go, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
We now know that roughly 25% is the mathematical tipping point for a committed minority to flip a societal norm. But consider the unprecedented modern era we live in.
Right.
Digital algorithms are specifically designed to curate, isolate, and amplify our feeds. They can easily create the illusion that a tiny, vocal, extreme group of people actually represents 25% or more of your local network.
Oh, wow, wait.
If human neurology is hardwired to abruptly conform once we merely perceive that a 25% threshold has been breached in our community, are we now uniquely vulnerable to having our cultural norms artificially tipped overnight by anyone who controls the digital illusion of a crowd?
Okay, that is going to keep me awake tonight. That is a terrifying thought to end on, but so important. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the invisible forces around you, keep an eye on your local network, and we will see you next time.